Hi, welcome back. Episode 3, Divorce Done Well. As you can see, we have a guest, Rebecca Harvey. We will get to her in a moment.
Welcome, Rebecca.
Yes, welcome.
Thank you.
We're so glad you're here.
It's good to be here. Thanks.
So just a reminder, we're live on Facebook. If you want to submit questions, we will look at those at the end of the show. Also, a reminder that we have moved to every other week for the podcast because, you know, because life happens and we need some time to prepare. So we haven't seen you guys in a while, and our next show will be May 31st. Because of Memorial Day, we won't be having it on Monday. So just a reminder to all 3 of our viewers.
And thank everybody for tuning in.
Oh, yes. Thank you for tuning in. Okay, so before we get to Rebecca, we're going to talk about our New York trip, which was good.
Yeah.
We had a great time. We're back all in one piece. Ziggy, do you want to show that picture from this is a picture of when we were leaving on our way to the airport.
And
or
just
we
to
were
be clear,
at the airport.
Just to be clear, I was not yelling at anybody. I wasn't telling anybody what to do. I was telling Sadie that the kids' favorite thing to do is go to the Admirals Club. They would rather go to the Admirals Club than pretty much go on vacation. And they changed the terminal at the last minute. And so this is me telling the kids we're not going to be able to go to the Admirals Club. You can see Sadie's reaction. And you can see Eli trying to reason with me why, even though we only had 3 minutes before the plane started boarding, that was still enough time to go to the Admirals Club, grab a Coke, get a New York Times, and it's me telling him, listen, buddy, it's not going to happen this time.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Because we did post that picture on Facebook, and a lot of people were like, of course, Eric's
yelling at them about something.
Yeah. Okay, so just kind of wanted to give a brief synopsis. I didn't feel like it was all that weird traveling together because that was something we always did well together. I have to say, I have an interesting story that I wanted to share. Sadie, our 11-year-old daughter, was beginning to keep track of all the things that we were buying for Eli, and she wasn't getting those things. So Eli got a pair of shoes, but she wanted a pair of shoes. Eli got
a Supreme hat,
whatever that is. She didn't get any, so she started to get really upset. And this is an ongoing thing. She just is always comparing, which I guess siblings do, but I just was at the end of my rope with her. It's frustrating, and I just lost it and was, probably not at my best. And Eric looked at me at one point and said, you need to stop.
I think I also said.
Oh, yes, you did say.
You said you need to apologize.
Yes, you said you need to apologize,
sorry.
And you said you're doing the exact same things that you get mad at me for. So when we were married, if he would have done that, it would have been a 2-day argument where I would have, we wouldn't have talked. I would have been super pissed because to me that
would have ruined the trip.
It would have ruined the trip, and to me it would have been about, oh, he thinks I'm a crappy mom. But one thing about being divorced and having kids is, even though Eric and I have a great co-parenting relationship, you still don't have that person there as a reminder when you're kind of going off the deep end with your kids. And so it was I have to say it was kind of nice because we recovered.
Well, yeah. And also, you go it alone most of the time, right? So like whether you're on a trip or you're at home, if the kids do something, it's really just like, there's not always that other person to kind of check you or to say, hey, is this the right thing to do?
Yeah.
And so we actually had that, but you can't always do that. I think a lot of divorced people can't do that.
No, for sure. But it was just a moment where, I felt like there was a time when I would have just been real not nice to you about it. You're like,
well, and there's also a time where I wouldn't have said anything either.
Right.
Like, it's not worth it.
Right.
And so, Yeah, I don't really know what that's indicative. I think, again, that just goes back to time and perspective and
maybe
you know,
growth with myself. Like, I've done my own work and my own
Yeah,
therapy.
growth with me too.
Yeah, right. And developed a confidence maybe that I didn't have.
yeah,
I don't know. Anyway, it was good. Go Wes.
yeah. And it was good also because, if we did start getting on each other's nerves, we just go to our own room.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Like it wasn't like, it wasn't this pressure cooker all
Right.
the time. So you had that respite. It was,
I think there was one time we were at a coffee place. I just get like anxious when we're traveling and I forget. And I was like, we're in line. Do you want to order? And Eric was like, I don't know what I want yet. I'm like, okay, I'll go ahead and order. It was just funny.
so it was a good trip.
Good trip.
Good trip. Encourage
Wait,
people to
there's
do it.
another picture, I think. Yes. Subway photo. Yes.
Where were we going?
Where were we going? I think this is when we decided to. Oh, I don't know where we were going.
I think we were heading. Oh no, that was Sunday because I'm wearing my jacket because it was raining
Yes,
all day.
correct. Rained all day on Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we had good ramen. If you guys need a good ramen place, we had excellent ramen. We went there twice.
Yeah. Hashtag Mama-san.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Enough of New York. All right. Now,
So now my turn.
yes, your turn.
As we said at the start of the podcast, we have a guest today. This is Dr. Rebecca Harvey. So Rebecca, I'm just going to read her bio because I couldn't summarize this even if I wanted to because I don't know what a lot of these things mean. So,
I can explain it.
well,
if you'd rather.
I will ask you to do that. Dr. Harvey is a mind-body, neurobiologically focused psychologist who specializes in providing a highly personalized therapy experience for her private practice clients. She aims to improve life satisfaction by reducing stress and drama caused by emotional reactivity. She assists clients who are contemplating, moving through, or healing from divorce. And so I finished. This is done by helping clients connect with their deeper goal of happiness and well-being, and she assists them with keeping this goal at the forefront. So, when Stephanie and I were conceiving of this podcast, we started thinking, who would we want to have on the podcast? Who would be helpful to people, either who have gone through divorce, or contemplating divorce, or who are just interested, because people are going to get sick of hearing from us. And
Right.
so the first sort of person we thought about was a therapist. Now, to be honest, we thought about having a therapist who is sort of focused on kids, because as you could tell by this podcast so far, it's very kid-focused
Yes.
and how to be divorced and be good parents and things like that. But when we talked to Dr. Harvey, she brought a sort of a different perspective to it. And we will have a therapist sort of aimed at dealing with kids in 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. But Dr. Harvey's focus is really about, the husband and wife being happy, like how to find happiness
As an individual.
as an individual. And that's really important, I think, because I don't think you can be a good parent or a happy parent if you're not a happy person
Right.
in your own right. So it kind of all starts there. So Dr. Harvey, why don't you, I'm sure I completely bastardized what you do. And so if you want to rehab anything I said, feel free to go ahead and give us your own elevator speech.
Not at all. You didn't at all. But yes, I am a mind-body, neurobiologically focused existential psychologist. So in a nutshell, what that means basically is that I help people take responsibility for creating meaning in their life, to create the life they desire, and to do so by really understanding the deep interplay of mind, body, and spirit. This is also referred to as whole brain connection, which is that neurobiological piece. And basically, in a nutshell, it's like we create a lot of stress and drama in our life by operating from the reactive part of our brain, from our primitive brain. And I'm helping clients learn to understand how to downregulate their primitive brain and move into a place of perspective where they can make choices that are more in line with what it is they want for their life. So I work with a variety of clients, but one group of clients that I work with are people who are contemplating divorce, in the process of divorce, and healing from divorce. And I think it is really important to keep in mind what you want your life to look like and allow that to guide your process no matter where you are in that stage. One of the reasons for that is I think society really frames divorce as a failure. And I think that that's really unfortunate because life to me is just a collection of experiences that we're having, and they're all opportunity for growth. So if we can look at divorce in the same way, that it's an opportunity for us to evolve and transcend and grow toward a greater capacity for love, I think we can really use it for that.
I think it's interesting that you say that, because I think that's why we've gotten some feedback where people don't really understand the dynamic that Eric and I have, right? Because you just said they see divorce as a failure. So what the heck are you doing traveling together, spending Mother's Day together?
If you can be together, you should be married.
Right. And so...
But don't you, I thought when you said people look at divorce as a failure, because that resonated with me, because that was one of the reasons why I think, at least for me, why we maybe didn't... People who get divorced, it's not like all of a sudden they decide to get divorced.
Sure.
And there's problems that go back months, probably years. But I think for me, and I think this is probably the case for a lot of people, they see divorce as failure. And in my mind, I'm not a failure. Like
Right.
I'm a high achieving person. And if I divorced, I've failed at something. And so you do everything you can to make sure that doesn't happen, so you don't have that outcome, when that's really self-defeating.
Yeah, well, yes and no. I think that, the structure of marriage is there in part to keep us from making a whimsical decision in a moment of upset to end something and, unnecessarily destroy something.
Right.
But there are times where we have moved on from a certain space of life or a certain position of life, and we're ready for a next thing. And what we're in is no longer fits for us. So I hear what you're saying, and I do think that there's a purpose to having that experience or questioning, all the negative feelings that come up about the idea of ending something. And I think that that's important to slow us down and allow us to look at the decision in a deeper way and to really determine whether that's what we want to do. Once we've made that decision, it's much like ending anything. I mean, think about if you started a business or a career path and then you changed your mind, right? It's like, you thought it worked, you thought it fit, it probably did serve a purpose.
It's got to run its course.
Yeah, and you guys had a good marriage at many points,
Right.
and you made 2 beautiful children, and now you're modeling wonderful things for them. So it's not, it served a purpose.
Right.
And then when it got to a place where neither of you could be your best self, and and I, from what I know, that both of you really tried, you went to therapy, you looked at this. Once you made that decision from a logical place, then it's not a failure. Then it's a decision to move forward and transcend and move on to a next thing.
It's kind of an interesting way to look at it, because I for sure didn't look at it like that. And I think that's why it took us still, because you said once you make the decision, but that was the part that took the longest.
Yes.
I mean,
So
you've known me
confusing.
personally, and you've known Eric, you've known us a long time. And so that's the part that's the hardest part. But
is.
anyway.
And personally, I'm also divorced.
Yes.
Without children.
Right.
But that's where.
But don't you also, I'm sorry to keep going back to I think society looks at divorce as failure. And so I think that's where we take our cues.
Of course.
You know what I mean? So.
Of course. And I think that that's what you guys are pushing up against.
Yes.
You're really pushing up against this idea that when we decide to end something that we started, that it's a failure.
Right.
And again, think of all the wildly successful entrepreneurs who talk about how many times they had to fail before they succeeded, and they look at that as a stepping stone.
We just talked about this. I mean, we're not going to go into details on names, but somebody that is an entrepreneur that he's probably not going to be able to move forward with it, but he has established all these contacts and will probably be in a really good spot. So it's a really good point.
Yeah.
It's kind of failing up.
Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah. Well, I think of, lots of things we learn in life. It's like, okay, I think I'm interested in this, and we start to go down that path. And then we're like, yeah, okay, that actually isn't quite the fit.
Yeah.
But in my experience, it comes back around that later in life, I'm able to bring in what I learned from that. What I gained from that situation into my next thing. It makes me more whole, or more wisdom, if you will.
Right.
Right.
All right. Okay, so is it my turn? I have questions. Okay. Here we go.
And just FYI, we are right where we're supposed to be.
Wow.
On-
Look at you guys go.
Yeah.
We're really good at
You
this.
guys are
We
so
are pros.
good.
Go us. Okay, thanks, Eric. Okay, so question 1. What are some top-line pointers to support a healthy divorce? Knowing that when you agree to get a divorce, like emotions are high, everyone's
Like, yeah, what do you do? Like, if you decided you're going to get divorced,
Yeah.
what are the? I mean, what do you tell your clients who come into your office and say,
do these.
"Yeah, I'm ready to get
Things.
divorced." What do you say?
Sure.
These are the things you need to do to have a successful or healthy divorce. What do you tell them?
Well, there are a lot of things that I would include in that, but as far as frontline things, what I would say first is slow down your process. You know, once we reach that decision, and as we discussed, it's a difficult decision to get to, and once we reach it, there's this experience that happens where it's like, anytime we're in pain, we want to hurry up and get away from the pain.
Yeah.
And our brain doesn't know the difference between physical pain and emotional pain. So if I was standing here with a hot poker poking you guys, you would run away from it. So when we're in emotional pain, what we want to try to do instinctively is to get away from that pain as fast as possible. But what that does is it moves us into the reactive part of our brain. And again, that's when we start to make mistakes. That's when we don't act from our higher self, from our higher thinking. So slowing down is the first thing I suggest, and it's counterintuitive, but I would suggest that. The second main thing I would suggest is for my clients to create what I call a post-divorce relationship vision. And so what that is you imagining what your best possible outcome could be, and to be very cautious not to limit your vision of this by what you suppose your partner is willing to do or capable of doing, but really to create a vision. That's what it is. It's a vision that you're moving toward, and you're allowing that vision to inform your behaviors and decisions, your attitude, your word choices along the way. So if you're holding on to that, then you're going to make better choices along the way.
So can I ask you a question about that?
Yes.
Challenge you a little bit, because the second point you made is, having that post-divorce, how you see post. That sounds great, right? And it sounds kind of almost academic and aspirational, and it assumes that both people are sort of at the same place at the same time, right? Because,
No.
well, think about this. I think a lot of people who get divorced, one person is here and one person is here, or they're just in different places. Rarely do I think people walk in holding hands and saying, "We're ready to get divorced. How do we be successful?" So how do you steer two people or one person? Because I'm assuming, unless you tell me both, husband and wife are both coming in to see you, how do you steer one person to do that when you know the other person is not there?
Yeah. So it is most often the case that both parties, most often they are not both on board with doing a healthy, loving divorce process.
Right.
So yeah, that would be ideal. And occasionally, like you guys had a shared vision of how you wanted it to be. That's most often not the case. And in fact, I would say that sometimes it kind of shifts throughout the process, where I've seen it where one person is like, they're comfortable taking the high road, they really have this vision, and then something happens that triggers them in a deep way, and they're like, forget about it.
Right.
And the other person might then shift into taking the high road. So it's not much like the rest of life. It is not a streamlined, easy process that looks, beautiful from start to finish just because you've decided it will be so. That's the reason why I wrote a book on it. It's a very difficult process, in fact. And even for those of us who have a good vision of how we want it to be, holding on to that through the process is quite challenging at times. That's, oftentimes for the very reason that we are divorcing, is that we're unable to communicate in a healthy way.
Yeah.
So what I would say is this. You may not be able to create a beautiful outcome with your partner and have and obtain the vision that you're shooting for. But this is the idea. It's a vision that you're shooting for to guide your steps, to guide your process. Because very often, if we're allowing ourselves to act from a place of anger, we're the ones left feeling the anger. Now, we're certainly going to stir the pot, and we're going to increase the likelihood that our partner responds back to us in an angry form, whatever that looks like, legally, emotionally, through the children, whatever it is. But if we want to have a most peaceful as possible process for ourselves, then we choose how we engage, and how we emotionally respond indicates how we are going to be left feeling. So if I'm angry at you and I'm stewing in my anger, if I'm sitting angry with you, then I'm going to feel all that anger actively in my body. And you may be like on vacation, sitting on a beach in that moment, completely oblivious to my angry experience.
So you being angry is like self-defeating. You're
Correct.
the only one it's affecting. It's not
Correct.
affecting the other person.
Well, exactly, and that'll move me into making some reactive decisions that are then probably going to go against what I want for myself ultimately. So all I can do is make the best possible choice I can make in that moment, letting my vision guide me. And I can't control what my partner does. I can't control that, but by being my best version of myself, I invite them to be less hostile, less confrontational, and to rise to the best version that they can do in that moment, which is certainly better than going to war with them.
Well, but I think for us, I think maybe our vision was just that, and maybe we did this by default, but we just put our kids first.
That's exactly. We didn't have a
a
vision
plan
for how it was going to look. But that's why I always talk about the kids being kind of the North Star, right? It was like that one thing we had that
Because
we
we
could hold on
had
to.
friends that we
right.
saw destroy each other and their kids.
Yeah.
And these were very dear friends of ours. And so we didn't want to do that. But I have to say, there was a lot of times, and it was a lot of times me, I would just rage at him, over text. But the difference between was that I would circle back and I would be like, I was an asshole, I'm sorry. And I don't think I ever did that when we were married.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
And also,
And that helped us come together because there was an awareness. Instead of me saying, it's all you, I do this because of you and you and you. And I never looked at.
but and I think that dovetails with what you said sort of at the beginning, and that is that we are always in this reactive
Yes.
state. Like I'm just waiting for somebody to say something so I can react
Yeah.
to it so I can win the argument
Yes.
or prove that I'm right or prove that I'm, and that's self-defeating too. That just doesn't get you anywhere. But again, it's trying to, I think it takes time and a little perspective because we weren't like that at the beginning, right?
There was lots of
It's very
text
reactive.
raging.
Sure, and you both had to work through your grief.
Yes.
So there are a lot of then, secondary things that I would say are foundational that I work with clients on, which are things like, working on healthy communication, deciding what your boundaries are, focusing on support from the outside environment, spiritual support for yourself, whether that's religious or not, self-support, right? How do you create healthy self-care behavior so that your tank is not depleted, so to speak? When our tanks are empty and someone pokes a hot button for us, we're going to explode. We're going to be a volcano waiting to erupt.
So maybe we've already answered this, but what if like, you're at the point, you're ready to get divorced, and you just hate your partner
Yeah.
because of, whatever reason. Would these steps still work? Like, how do you advise somebody who is, because we were angry. I think everybody who gets divorced has some anger, but we weren't consumed by rage
Right.
and anger.
Because we still, on some level, which is why we can be friends, is that we liked I like who Eric is.
Mm-hmm.
He likes who
I'm very likable.
Right, you are
really
very
are.
likable.
Thank you.
Really
Yes,
are.
he's got a lot of Facebook friends.
That's really good for this.
That's
It makes me feel good.
Yeah, right. Okay, but yes, we have a lot.
But we have friends who are, at the beginning hated each other, are now divorced 8 years, hate each other more.
Sure.
Like, how do you advise those people?
Those people probably aren't the people who even are contemplating doing this kind of divorce, honestly.
Right.
So when those kind of people come into my office, what I do is I press up against that hate a little bit. Because if we're honest with ourselves, hate's not the opposite of love. And I
Right.
really love that quote by Rollo May. Hate is not the opposite of love. I really view hate as more of disappointed. I'm disappointed in love, feeling love unrequited. I'm so painfully hurt
Right.
by putting myself out there and making myself vulnerable and feeling that I didn't get what I thought I should get.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's when people move into hate. And really what they're in is a deep space of pain and grief and all that goes with that. So sadness and anger, disappointment. So I try to push up against that and help them center into what's going on with them. Because as you said, Stephanie, it's a lot easier for us to just decide that it's someone else's fault and point
Right.
the finger, right? That feels so much better to be in our righteous indignation that it has nothing to do with what we are contributing. our energy, our words, our
Right.
tone of voice has
Right.
nothing to do with any of this.
Right.
Our baggage from our childhood has nothing to do with this. It's all about the other person. And if they would just fill in the blank,
Yes.
we would be our best self.
Yes, totally.
Well, that's really convenient, but it's not really a mature, healthy approach to relationship.
But that was a shift for
Yes.
for us, like knowing that I had a role,
yes.
knowing that it was not.
It doesn't matter it doesn't matter what happens that leads you to divorce. And this is what I learned from Marty. You play a role, no matter what it is, no matter what your partner did or didn't do.
If it's 10% or 90%, you're
you
in
still
there.
have a role.
Yes.
And
Yes.
if you can't acknowledge that, then I think you can't get to where you are.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So to say that, no, not everyone will have a loving divorce process. And that's part, I mean, I mentioned that in my book. I say, like, you know, the fact that you're reading this book suggests that you're capable of doing this. Now, can you get your partner on board? You don't have control over that. But you can definitely contribute, as you were saying. You have a contribution in the relationship. And in the divorce process, you have a contribution, your side of things, of how it goes forward.
Right.
And you can certainly impact how you feel by, my gosh, if your partner's being hostile, slow down, take space, create a proximity boundary, right? Go away from them for a minute as best you can. Go get therapy, like do everything that you can to support that process. It's really nice for us to sit around and contemplate revenge, to sit in this vengeful place
Right.
with our partner. And the reason why is because it kicks in certain parts of the brain, and it's the same place that kicks in with the dopamine response when we have chocolate or sex or something like that. So it feels really good in the moment.
Yeah.
But ultimately, if we act on that revenge, if we go forward in this hostility, we end up paying the price. If we have children, they end up paying the price. You know, I think if you're able to slow down and get present with your higher self, most of us would prefer to look back at ending something and feel good about how we handled it.
Yeah. And I also think, like, you know, I made a lot of mistakes, as did Eric, when we were married. But, like, the fact that he can look past some of those
Yeah.
things and move forward, like, makes me respect him
Sure.
more.
But also, like, you know, when people ask me, how do you get rid of that anger? I mean, my answer is always, I mean, what am I supposed to do?
Right.
Like, carry around anger for the rest of my
Exactly.
life and just, you know, be this bitter
Exactly.
person
Shut
that
down.
shut
Right,
down
this-
and
what is
let
this?
and
Right. What is this quote? Anger is like, I totally interrupted you. I'm sorry.
No.
Anger is like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die.
right.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
didn't write that.
It just
Yes.
Yeah. Nelson Mandela.
Yes,
Right. So-
Nelson Mandela. Thank you.
it's true. It eats away at you from the inside, and you know nobody wants to be
Yeah.
around an old, bitter, angry person who
Right.
still rages at his ex-wife.
Right.
It's just not healthy.
Well, and let's face it, you know, you guys have children, so you're going to see each other,
Right.
right, for the rest of ever.
Right.
I didn't have children with my ex, but I run into him all
We
the
saw-
time.
right.
We saw him. We were out at an event, and we saw my ex.
We're like,
and
hey.
Stephanie wasn't sure, like, am I supposed to be off, like
I did-
put off by him? And I was like, no,
No,
we're
it was
totally
fine.
good.
It's
We're
good because
totally
if you
good.
told me you hated your ex, I'd have to kick you off the show. Right?
Well,
No.
thankfully I don't.
No.
But I mean, that is, again, that's what inspired writing the book, is that when I made the decision, it was a painful decision to come to, but when I made the decision that I was going to end my marriage, my goal was to end it in the way that I started it.
Yeah.
To end it with respect and kindness and honesty and love, and as best I could. And that was challenging at points. But it was a huge growth opportunity. And now when I see him, it's
Yeah,
fine.
it was fine. He came
It
up
was
and
fine.
said
He
hi,
came
said hi
over,
to
he
me.
chatted
It was
with
all-
us. It was
yeah.
very pleasant.
Yes.
Yeah. So, you know, and I think that that's nice. Again, even if you don't have children, as you said, you can appreciate things about one another.
Right.
And there were a lot of good
Yeah.
parts about my marriage as well. So it's nice that I can not have to make the whole thing horrible.
Right.
I can remember the good parts, and I can call upon him. Actually, I had a question about a business thing, and I was able to call him. He's an amazing negotiator, and I was able to call him and say, like, can you please help talk me through this, because I don't do that for a living.
You know, I think also if you look at like I try to do this, I try to find, you know, something good about every bad situation. I'm not saying marriage was a bad situation, but I try to look at everything like a learning experience. Like, yeah, it didn't end up working out. It wasn't a failure. It didn't end up working out, but these are the things I learned because, you know, to the extent that I did something wrong or I could have done something better, I don't want to do it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Either, right? Like because if you do the same things, you're going to have the same outcome, you're going to have the same
Absolutely.
result.
So if
that's
you're busy
another-
pointing the finger
Right.
at someone else,
You're
then
not-
you're
you're
not
not
going to
looking
introspect on what you contributed. This is interesting. So it's a myth that there's 50-50 with divorce. It's actually a little bit more like 40-something, 42-ish% of people divorce. And and so of second marriages, though, 75% of those also divorce.
Yeah.
But here's the interesting thing: the 25% that stay married of that second marriage report higher marital satisfaction than the people who stayed married in the first place. And I think a big part of that is
They learn.
exactly what
Yeah.
you're talking about. It's like if we can stop pointing the finger and look at what we can do differently. And I really think that starts with how you move through the divorce process.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, it's my turn. Okay. What are the communication do's and don'ts?
Ooh.
I'm
So-
sure there's a long list. But
Well, yes. So
Give us your top 5.
Well, the biggest thing here is like deciding to have empathic communication, right? Deciding to have healthy communication
Right.
is number one. That's an effortful choice. In fact, most people who show up for couples therapy, they're there to learn how to communicate in the first place.
Right.
Because a lot of times we're not listening. So that's the big one. We're not listening.
it's like white noise.
Well, yeah. I mean, people are talking, our partner's talking.
Waiting
and
for my turn to
I'm
react to
waiting
that.
for
Yeah.
my turn to respond. So
Right.
I'm not really listening. I'm operating off my old stuff, my perceptual overlays of how I see things working in the world, and I'm making assumptions about what they are saying and what they really mean, and then I'm going off that. So
Right.
if we really listen and we listen empathically, we can make sure that we're hearing what it is they're trying to communicate. Oh my gosh, that spares so much discord.
When we used to go to Marty, we would.
That was our couples.
That was our
therapist.
Marty Glass. It was awesome. He would he would have you talk, and then he would say to me, Eric, what did she just say?
Right.
Because he probably knew me, and he knew that I was waiting for
Yes.
my turn.
Sure.
I was formulating my
Yes. You
are an
response and my
attorney,
art.
right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's exactly
It's
what I do.
wired in.
But you know what? Good.
It's wired into everybody,
Good
though.
attorneys listen.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
not just that was a.
It's a human thing.
It's a
I was
human
teasing.
thing. I know everybody does that, but I mean, he made me repeat back what she said or how I interpreted it. Because at home we didn't do that. She would say something, and all I heard is want,
Yeah.
and I'm just waiting for my. But that's wrong. This is how, and it's just a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, we become deeply entrenched in our beliefs. And
Yeah,
we
and then
just-
you can't hear anything.
True.
It's sad.
True.
But look at us now.
I know.
Yeah.
Here you are.
Okay, so-
literally on a talk.
I know, right?
Communication.
Who would have thought? Okay, so empathic listening.
So making a decision for healthy communication.
Right.
Empathic listening.
Okay.
The next thing I would say is to really check your tone. Because we can often have, we think
yes.
that we're communicating in a healthy and clear way, but we have sarcasm, passive
yes.
aggression, hostility, vindictiveness in our tone. And then we're like, why are you getting so
Oh,
worked
but I mean,
up?
I do that all the
I
time.
mean, I didn't call you names.
Right,
and
I didn't say it that
I didn't
way.
yell.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, and admit it, that's me at my worst,
Yeah.
right? I'll just say something in such a way, right?
But in
it's
like this calm voice,
it's
but that's
so calm.
so
I'm
not
saying
cool.
it, but it sounds so condescending.
Yes.
Yeah. So really taking responsibility for that,
Yeah.
refraining from that. The other thing I would say is to be very purposeful, if you have children especially, about how you refer to your partner.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a big part of communication. I spoke with a child therapist when I was writing my book. I interviewed her, Dr. Julie Carberry. She's here in Dallas. And she said she thinks that if people are unable to call each other by their first name, they should refer to each other as, mommy or daddy, or my co-parent. When they're talking to people that are not the child, my co-parent.
But
my
you don't.
co-parent.
You don't say that to the child.
No, the
I'm
child
talking to
would say-
your co-parents on the phone.
No,
Don't say that.
no, but when you're referring to them,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And getting
She's
in the
my
habit of that, of not saying my ex.
Well, I know.
my
I
ex-wife.
don't like saying ex. I have to say. I say like my kid's dad.
Yeah.
I don't like
Yes,
to say.
exactly.
And then some people don't know who Eric is. I hate saying ex.
I think that's a good plan.
Yeah.
And part of that especially is that it creates an energy around you because you mentioned this way earlier, which is people want to make an assumption about how you feel about your partner if you're divorced.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I'm a fan of debunking that. When people are like, but I'm like, that's not how I feel.
Yeah.
That's not where I'm at with it.
Right.
So when you choose how you refer to them, you help to shape that experience for other people, most importantly, your children.
Yeah.
Because however you're speaking about each other, your children are internalizing that
Yes.
because they're parts of you. So if you're speaking ill about one another, you're speaking ill about your child.
Yes.
And they internalize it as
That's
such.
a good point.
So
Also,
it's,
I think kids, and I have zero support for this, but like I get the sense that when a parent talks badly about another parent in the home around the kids, that backfires. I think that parent might think, oh, I'm getting points for, telling the kid what a bad mom their mom is.
Sure.
But that kid either then or later on is going to say, my dad was a piece of shit
Yep.
for
Yeah.
talking shit about my mom.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Always.
And so that's
That's how it goes down every
Yeah.
time I've seen it. Is the parent who needs the child to be on their side is what's going on there.
Yeah.
They need the child's emotional support. They need to feel validated and vindicated in whatever's going on. So they do exactly what you're referring to. And it does. It bites them in the butt later.
Yeah.
Like as that child grows up, they start to reflect back and say, how come, for instance, my dad never spoke illy of my mom, but
Right.
my mom was always talking smack on my dad. Like, wow, my mom really tainted me against my
Yeah,
dad.
yeah, yeah.
How unfair was that?
Yeah.
And so the child's relationship with the other parent can suffer, and then later it reverses, and the relationship with the parent who was being
We know
terrible
that
suffers.
we see that happen.
Yeah. So the last thing I would suggest.
Yes, right, because that would be 5.
That would be
Thank
5.
you.
The last thing I would suggest would be to take a time out. If you are unable to communicate in a healthy way with or about your partner, don't communicate at that time. Things can wait, and that's why I said, slow the divorce down. It's important to be able to press pause. Married or going through divorce,
Yeah.
it's important to be able to press pause when we're not going to operate from our best self and to say, this is not a good time to talk. I'm feeling dysregulated. I'm not going to say nice things right now. This is not going to be productive. Can we do this later? And if it's something that is a time pressing issue, set a time.
Right.
Can we do this in an hour? Can I
Right.
call you back tonight after work? Make it a specific time.
I just saw Nelson Mandela. Is that the same?
Well, I saw that you put the quote
Oh,
there, and
thanks.
it was going to be for you, but I forgot to tell
Yeah,
you.
thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, we had one more question before we wrap up.
Yeah. So,
Because we have gotten some people, like I've had a lot, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but we've
it
got,
says Eric.
I know, I'm not going to ask the question, but I've gotten some feedback from people like that are thinking about divorce, that have reached out to me, like people that have come out of the woodwork as a result of this podcast. So go ahead. That's all I was going to say.
Do you want to go ahead?
Nope, go ahead.
So, Dr. Harvey, what do you suggest for the people who, are sort of on the fence about it? And we said this in the first podcast.
Contemplating
people
divorce.
are gonna, divorce is a tough subject, and I think a lot of people sort of bury it until they hear people talk about it or they see people
Yes.
going through it. I think some people think it's almost contagious.
Sure.
There's 3 people getting divorced. Maybe I should think about getting divorced. I'm not happy.
Right.
So, like Stephanie said, people have reached out to us, some to Stephanie, some to me. I'm about to go through divorce, or I'm contemplating
Yes.
divorce. What, for people who are on the fence, any advice?
Yes, absolutely. First of all, I would say go find a therapist. If you can get your partner into couples therapy, that's probably your best plan. And if at that point that therapist determines that you need individual therapy, then find an individual therapist. If your partner is not willing to go to couples therapy, find an individual therapist to start sorting through your side of things. So in addition to that, I would say do your due diligence, read books. Mine is not published yet, but it will be soon. Read books on divorce. There's a fabulous book by Lee Raphael on controlled separation. And there are actually quite a few books on controlled separation, but I really like Lee Raphael's book. And what it does is it entices you to do a controlled separation agreement. And what that is it's a contract. It's a contract you go through with your partner that decides, okay, we're going to take time apart, whether that's an in-home separation or we're going to move to separate residences. You can do this if you've made the decision, but you're not ready to take the steps yet to divorce, or if you're contemplating divorce. And what it does is it just gives you both kind of a time out from each other to
Right.
reflect. But in the process of doing that and taking the time out, it creates clear agreements of what will and won't be done, from everything to, are we going to talk to attorneys, to are we going to see other people? Will we be sleeping with other people? What are we going to say to the children? What are we going to say to friends and family? How are we going to deal with financials? And because I think if you have this agreement of how you're going to handle things, there's a lot less error for making unintentional or intentional transgressions against one another when you're taking space to try to get clarity, to not complicate it further, if you will.
Right. That's interesting.
Yeah. And I've seen this be the case before, often enough, that if you can get space and get clarity, you can reconcile.
Right.
But if you wait,
But both parties have to
both
be,
parties
yeah.
have to be willing. Of course, both parties have to be willing. Okay. And so if your partner is not willing to do couples therapy nor a controlled separation agreement, go seek therapy.
Yeah.
And then really start to work on self-care and things like that to support yourself through the process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a good note to sort of end on.
Yeah.
Do we want to, thank you for
Yes.
everything. That was awesome.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Yes.
Ziggy,
Yes.
do we have any questions? Do we have any comments? And
We
if
do
the answer is
today.
no, make some up.
We do have some comments today. Bill Spett says, excellent show today.
Great. That's Eric's dad.
Thank you, Bill.
We have Goldie Shaw, I believe. Great job, Steph and Eric, setting a great example for others. And then we have Jen Peck commented, and I quote,
Jen Peck.
"Hey!" So, yeah.
All right.
Hey, Jen.
All right. Thank you. Okay. Thank you for coming.
Absolutely. Thank you both for having
you.
me.
Yeah. So
Great show.
we'll be back May 31st with another
special
therapist.
guest.
Yes, another special guest. We'll be talking about kids, possibly introducing dating and how that dynamic kind of works, which I know we've received lots of questions. People are anxious to hear about that. Otherwise, everybody have a great week. Again, follow us, Divorced Done Well, Instagram, Facebook. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
And you can hear us on Apple
Yes, thank you.
Podcast, Spotify, and some others that I've never heard
iTunes.
of.
Yes.
iTunes.
Well, you've heard of iTunes.
Heard of iTunes,
Yes.
but there's other ones too.
Okay. I think that's it.
That's it.
Okay. Thanks
Appreciate it.
everybody.